Good evening, everybody, and a really warm welcome to Abertay University. For those who don't know me, I'm the Principal and Vice-Chancellor here at Abertay. So this is the first in our Abstract 45 speaker series. So thank you very much for joining us this evening as we kick off this new public engagement event for the university. And that will see speaker sessions featuring professors, academic staff, guests, and essentially we're running a monthly session here on campus. So I do hope you'll come back and come back to the other scheduled sessions that we're having. Of course, no pressure on Alastair to create a good start. If you're wondering what Abstract 45 means, well, these sessions will be around 45 minutes in length. And like the abstract section of a research paper, will be a chance to frame the expertise of our speakers for a public audience. So focusing on key issues that matter to society and the real world problems facing professional sectors linked to Abertay. So as a university, we have an ironclad commitment to responding to the needs of industry, preparing students for the world of work, widening access to higher education and engaging with research with real world impact. It is these same core commitments that you'll hear echoed across the speaker series as we seek to open up debate, encourage fresh thinking and perhaps challenge a few perceptions. It's often easy to think of Abertay as a teaching-focused university because we're well known for it. And as you'll have seen on the front of the building as you came in, we're among the very best for the UK, in the UK, for student satisfaction. But we also punch massively above our weight in terms of our small size when it comes to research impact and delivering for our research partners. We're very proud to rank in the top 3 UK modern universities for research intensity, and we also recorded a 23% increase in research judged to be internationally excellent or world leading in the latest Research Excellence Framework results. And that's the biggest climb of any Scottish institution. So now, without further ado, I'll introduce our inaugural Abstract 45 speaker, Professor Alastair Irons. Alastair is a Professor of Computer Science and, of course, Deputy Principal and Deputy Vice-Chancellor here at Abertay. Previously, he was an Academic Director and Dean at the University of Sunderland, and he graduated from the University of Edinburgh. He's a National Teaching Fellow and a Visiting Professor at the University of Johannesburg. Alastair's research interests focus on digital education and digital pedagogies, but also on digital forensics and cybersecurity. His current research includes digital skills frameworks for students and academics, digital skills for all and digital poverty, as well as cybersecurity in the classroom and learning safely in the classroom of the future. Among his latest publications are a book on assessment and feedback in 2021 and an anthology of issues in higher education in a post-COVID world in 2022. In addition to his leadership role here in Scottish higher education, Alastair is currently Vice President Academic of the BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, and he is also currently the UK representative on the International Federation for Information Processing. Following Alastair's talk, there'll be around 15 minutes or so for Q&A, and we're both very happy to chat to you afterwards, should you have time to stay around, and I very much hope that you will. So before I pass over, let me thank you once again for coming, and I hope you enjoy the session. Thank you, Alastair.
Thank you all very much for coming. I really appreciate it. I'm very proud. It's an extreme privilege, and I'm really delighted to see so many friends, family, colleagues here. I can't tell you how much it means to me. It's absolutely fantastic. So what I'm going to talk about this evening in 45 minutes, I hope somebody's got a wee wave of 5 minutes, because rubbish. Anyway, well, we'll see. And we've got some slides here that should go about 45 minutes-ish. Graham's been putting pictures on them all day because I was very boring, and because he said, don't be too outlandish, don't go too wild. So I did it on very plain paper. But Graham's put lovely pictures on. So I've checked them, I think, but there might be. So if there's any inappropriate pictures, it's not me, it's Graham. Ready? And he's probably messed about with some of the words just for fun, just to keep me on my toes. So if there's any upset, it's not me, it's Graham. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the challenges in higher education, in Scotland, in the UK, and indeed globally. I'm going to try and tie in some of my research, and it's great to see so many folks here that I've collaborated with over the years. Indeed, one of my first interactions with Abertay, having been the external validator in the ethical hacking program many moons ago, was to write a paper with my good friend and colleague Ian Ferguson when we tried to establish digital forensics as a professional discipline, and we put our flag in the sand and said, there we go. And that has been, people have cited that paper maybe once. And that was me. And I'm not sure if citing yourself counts, but although I've only been here 18 months, I've had a long-standing relationship with the university. I've been an external examiner here. I've actually been an external examiner in our little sister university down the road. We're much better, I have to say, from an external examiner's point of view. I'm going to try and talk a little bit about the turmoil that we're in. And obviously, when we're concentrating on higher education, we're thinking about education. We're thinking about how education helps to make society a better and safer place. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that from a higher education perspective, but also tease in how cybersecurity can help in that place. And it might seem a little trite when we're talking about these things, when there are so many other challenges in the world. We look at what's happening in Ukraine, we look at what's happening in Gaza, and we have to remember that, in our world where education is so important and higher education is so important and Abertay is so important, that there are other things going on. So please take in context. And really the theme of my talk tonight is to show how we work better together and work in partnership, and how we can make a better environment, a better ecosystem, and a better education, a better higher education for everyone involved in higher education, from staff and students to the wider society. So please bear with me if I think that is too grand. So my research and how, I feel, as I say, a bit fraudulent standing here in front of my peers who are doing much more in terms of research than I am at the moment. I like to keep dipping my hand in. Poor Nia keeps saying, no, you're not going into the rest. Just go and do education management. Leave us to do research. But I like to keep dabbling. And so I'm in the throes of writing a book. Luke said I should have had a pile of books in the corner to get you to go and buy the book, because I get a penny royalty or something. So that's really worth the while. But there's a new book coming out next year on assessment and feedback, with a whole series of case studies. But my real interests are around both teaching, obviously, teaching computer science, how we use digital technologies, how we go through digital transformation to enable teaching and bring education to a much wider audience than might normally have had access to education. I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes in the environment and how we can look at the model of delivery in higher education to bring the opportunity to many more people. It's particularly pertinent in Dundee, where so many folks don't think that higher education is for them. And there's a huge piece of work that the university is doing around taking that to so many people. And there are many colleagues in the room here who are at the forefront and in the vanguard of doing that. I'm going to talk a little bit about cybersecurity, because that is my interest. in research at the minute, particularly in how we teach cybersecurity, what we mean by cybersecurity skills, and how we raise awareness about cybersecurity. Go back to my thoughts about partnership and society, but then how we might take that back into higher education. I'm also going to tease in professional bodies, because I believe fervently in the work that the professional bodies are doing, and raising the standards and across higher education, but also to raise the standard for people going out into the workplace and in employment, and of course going back to my theme around creating partnerships. And I'm going to tease out some of the partnerships in cybersecurity, talk a little bit about our cyber quarter. It's over there. And is wonderful, but to go back to some of my experiences from the northeast of England, and just to show that link between the northeast of England, one of my PhD students, who was a student in Sunderland, has seen the light and come north with me. So I'm delighted that Martin's made the effort to come all the way up from the northeast. Okay, so the digital world post-COVID. Liz mentioned one of the pieces of work that I did in 21-22 was how we look at delivery of education, higher education in that post-COVID world. So there's so many wonderful things that resulted in COVID. Of course, COVID was a horrible situation. It was terrible. It was devastating. There was utter turmoil caused. But in terms of educational change, so much happened in such a short period of time that wouldn't have happened had we just been going through the normal process. That whole notion about hybrid learning, about enabling students and indeed people teaching to have a different view on education. And of course, there's technology never stands still. Some wonderful things that we're doing in the university in applying technology from the business school through applied sciences through into our School of Design and Informatics. And it's great that Abertay is at the forefront and pushing at that agenda. It's often said, but we really do punch above our weight, and it's just fantastic. And it's testament to so many of you in this room that we are doing that. There's all sorts of technologies going on, which is great. It's absolutely fantastic. So Internet of Things, mobile technologies, wearable technologies, cloud computing. Fraser loves cloud computing because we can stick all our stuff in the cloud and it's somebody else's problem. All sorts of things like that. Generative AI. Been a huge game changer, and changing the face and nature and shape of higher education. I'll talk a little bit about that in the domain of cybersecurity, both as an opportunity and as an enhanced and increased threat. Things like big data and, of course, entertainment. So our lives are dependent on technology. That's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But as we become more and more dependent on that technology, we potentially are at more and more risk, because things can go wrong, things can be misused, people can get access to us. So I had maybe I shouldn't say who it was, but a very well-known publisher pinged me yesterday and said, oops, we've had a breach. Some of your data might well go out into the wild. I went, oh, God. It's quite worrying that we're at such that are around attack, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the types of attackers in a second. So let's look at the environment that we're working in, and the turmoil that higher education finds itself in at the moment. Is anybody here from government? Nobody's going to admit it. Great, so I can say what I like. No, I couldn't say what I like. Because I should have said, welcome to all, where are they? All our friends that are online. We've got people from Johannesburg, hello Basie, people from Malaysia, people from the Far East, and it's just fantastic, and as we share our partnerships across the globe. Anyhow, government funding, the Scottish Government, and one of the real things that I've found quite weird about coming from the English system, to the Scottish system is how different it is. You know, being a Scot in England was actually, it's quite a cool thing to be doing, because, you know, you can talk about kicking the border down to the T's and, you know, all sorts of things. And, you know, you've got a kind of personality associated with that. But dealing with the English system is fine, that's interesting. But then dealing with coming over the border and dealing with the Scottish system, you think, it's quite different. Lots and lots of benefits, and lots of things that they do much better than from Westminster, but some things that are maybe there's the opportunity to shape and develop. The confusing bit, however, is that some issues are restricted business. So they're not dealt with by the Scottish government, not dealt with by Holyrood, they're dealt with by Westminster. And trusted research falls into that space. So a lot of the work that we are doing in the university and how to manage and deal with trusted research is driven not by Holyrood, but is driven by Westminster. I was at a talk, so I'm not attributing, this isn't me, I'm attributing it to somebody else. I won't tell you who, because he thinks he's a secret squirrel, and it's very important. And he is in his own wee world. But now, if anybody knows what it is, don't tell him I said that. But they're thinking, his view is that the whole trusted research agenda isn't really about trusted research. It's an MI5 story about finding out what we send to China, right? That's not funny. That's really scary and quite worrying. But good, you keep laughing. That's great. That was another. That counts as a joke because it got a laugh. Right? That's two jokes. But that got how we deal with government policy, how we react to government policy, how we interact and engage with government is a real challenge for higher education. Knowing where the goalposts are, knowing where the goalposts are moving to, and in fact, knowing what shape the goalposts are is an ongoing issue for us. And of course, there's the pragmatics of like managing in higher education. So we've got to absorb pay rises, we've got to deal with inflation, we've got to deal with utility costs, a whole set of things. We've got to deal with RAC, whatever RAC might be, and you know how that fits into the agenda. We're dealing with a whole set of reports coming out. So the Weathers Review talking about HE being fit for the future, and some of what we're going to look at both tonight and indeed in our ongoing agenda is how we make sure we are fit for the future. Thinking about cap student numbers, thinking about student numbers, thinking about the 18-year-old Scottish population, how we push the access to higher education. There's some really interesting stuff coming around the Scottish Diploma of Achievement and what that might mean as that comes out of the Hayward Review. Thinking about different modes of higher education. So we go back to COVID and how we dealt with COVID and how we think about people accessing education when they want to access education, thinking about those types of students who want to come onto campus and be in a traditional classroom, thinking about people who want to come onto campus and be in a non-traditional classroom. So all sorts of different opportunities and how we think about that. And one of the things we've got to take back to government is how they then fund those students and how they enable those students to choose to study the way those students want to study. Because one of the things that we are really pushing at Abertay is to make sure that everybody gets the chance to be the best that they can be. And we shouldn't restrict that by saying you have got to be here for 4 years as an undergraduate, starting in September and finishing in July, 4 years down the road. Some people might benefit that way, others might not. We've got a huge opportunity around international students. The value of a UK education, the value of a Scottish education, the value of a Dundee education, the value of an Abertay education has got huge cachet globally. So we're looking to attract students to the city. And the value, not just to the university, but to the city and to the local economy is significant. Luke managed and ran a conference last year for 3 days. Well, it probably took a lot longer than that. People were here for 3 days. And we got a report from the local government saying you've brought nearly £500,000 into the city. So with 300 people for 3 days. Right? If you think about that, so we have 300 students coming for a year, multiply that out, do the math, it's a fantastic opportunity. We are also taking our brand out into the world and looking at T&E partnerships, developing links in Africa, in the Middle East, in in Malaysia, in Hong Kong, in Singapore, goodness me, in Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, where I'm sending Gregor. You want any more upsets? And Turkmenistan is on your agenda for Christmas. But the markets are opening up all over the world. So that's a real challenge for us, and a really real opportunity as we look and seek to diversify education and indeed income. Looking at how people learn, understanding how people learn, understanding how people want to learn is a challenge for us and an opportunity for us. I can't talk about the higher education environment without mentioning generative AI and really being a game changer. And it really is a game changer. And we've done some fantastic work already about how to embed AI right from the outset. We embraced AI as a university when many older universities were rejecting it and trying to block it and ban it. And so we're really, again, at the forefront of new opportunity. But it not only has it flipped the way students learn, it's flipped the way we need to think about assessment, and it's flipped about what's important in assessment. You know, so thinking about what it is that students actually are able to do is a real opportunity for us. And of course, because there's research talk, I couldn't mention the challenges and turmoil in higher education without mentioning research and, of course, the REF 2028. And that's another example of goalposts not quite being fixed and moving and changing all the time. So what I'm going to do now is flip it a little bit and look at the concept of cybersecurity and look at turmoil in the cybersecurity environment. Like higher education, cybersecurity exists in a very complex place. What it is that we're trying to do when we talk about cybersecurity is not an easy, straightforward problem to try and solve. There are a whole set of variables, not least the increase in the scale and types of cybercrime. I'll come back to that when I look at AI as being an instrument, a new instrument, an additional instrument for cybercrime. There is a huge growth in the digital economy, and as there are more artifacts in the digital economy, it becomes a more attractive environment for cyber criminals. We, the bigger we, in terms of society, want systems to be there all the time, easy access, openly accessible, with no restrictions. And the bad guys love this. Of course they do, because as it's easier for access to us, it's easier for access to them. We throw AI into that mix. How many of you have changed the password today? Many of you have changed the password? Well done, James, you get a gold star. This week, this month, this year, who feels quite safe in the cyber world? Who really cares? Who knows everybody that's got access to everything they've got? None of you. I guarantee it. And if you did think you were right, you would probably be wrong, because there'll be at least 3 times the number of people, we'll call them, that have access to your information than you think you have. So complacency about personal security is a real challenge. And I'm going to talk about awareness about cybersecurity, and we'll tease that into awareness of opportunity around higher education. We can't look at cybersecurity in a university without realizing that universities are an attractive target. We are 4th in the hit list of UK known targets. So we've got the government, we've got the NHS, we've got the post office, bizarrely. The post office still exists. I think it might be because folk are upset about what the post office did to that's another story for another day. And then universities. So, you know, why attack universities? Well, 1, we're easy to attack. 2, we give ourselves a reputation of being wonderful. Being a cyber quarter, there's some people want to go and punch the big person in the playground. So, you know, that's something that we need to consider. As I say, as we become more dependent on systems, that vulnerability increases. And of course, where the universities come in as part of the partnership and saving the world, is that we can develop the workforce with the appropriate skill set to address the cybersecurity gap in skills. So, just a little bit about the background for those of you who are feeling safe and comfortable and haven't changed your password for over a year. These are the types of people that are interested in you. right? And some of them are 13-year-old kids. They're nuisance threats, just seeing what they can do. They're playing, they're learning, that's nice. Nice little opportunity to encourage people to do things the proper way and come to university and study appropriately. But there are also, up at the top of that list, the really nasty folks, and nasty folks with a lot of money and a lot of resource and a lot of skill and a lot of ability and really interested in just causing mayhem. So these are government-sponsored, government-backed, advanced, persistent threats. And you know, there are certain countries in the world that spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of resource in causing as much nuisance and danger and upset as they can. And of course, we've got cybercrime. And there's a whole range of cyber criminals, from the opportunistic, you know, from the fact that somebody left a laptop on in a train and went to buy a cup of coffee, and somebody just jumps in and uses it, from that opportunistic perspective, right through to serious and organised crime. And when I first got involved in looking at digital forensics and then working in cybersecurity with colleagues like Martin down in the northeast and working with the police forces in the northeast region, this is made up. All this stuff, all these nasty people, and they say, "Come with me," and like 200 yards from where I'm working, there are serious organised criminal gangs, and you go, there's a river in the way as well, which made it a little bit safer. But on where I was based on the north bank of the Wear, on the south bank of the Wear, you know, there are really dangerous, nasty, horrid people who don't care a jot about the damage that they do, who don't care a jot about the impact they have on people, who don't care a jot about wrecking people's lives, as long as they make money out of it. Then we've got the hacktivists, and you know, these are the guys that think they're doing a good thing. They're keeping Big Brother at bay, and they're showing you like how you know, society is being misused and been misgoverned and all the rest of it. And you know, they are causing chaos in their own way, and you know, turmoil, as they see they're doing a good thing and a benefit for society. Yeah, they're not. They're still criminals, and there's no getting away from that. And then the one, and then I left it to the end because it's probably the scariest, is the insider threat. So people from within your organisations and the organisations that you're working for, 33% of all recorded cybercrime comes from insider threat. Just let that sink in when you go back into the office tomorrow and think that's 1 in 3 people are up to something that they shouldn't be up to. It's really quite worrying and really quite scary when you put it like that. And some of them are masquerading, you know, again, as inappropriate users, trying to be somebody else. Some folks are doing things that they shouldn't be doing in a secret way. But then the perhaps the most difficult group to deal with is the misfeasors, who look as if they're doing their job according to the protocols and the regulations and the way that they're doing things. And they do that some of the time, but they then misappropriate wee bits. So 2 to the company, 1 to me, 2 to the company, 1 to me. And they are really, really quite tricky to spot. So there's a huge turmoil going on in that cyber world. So AI. Ted would mention AI and look at it in the context of the cyber world. And we could, I'm not going to talk about this for very long. We could talk about it for days. In fact, there's a whole course in this. There's a whole undergraduate program in AI and cybersecurity. That was a hint, by the way, if you want to be doing anything tomorrow and creating new programs, have that one done by tea time. Mohammed, I'm glad you're nodding. I was actually looking at the folk behind you, but if you want to do one as well, that's brilliant. Fantastic. It's one of the things about being DVC. All of a sudden, I've got to be careful what I say because folk nod and go and do it, and they go, "I was joking, I was kidding." But great. But that's not to stop you doing things. Great to have a look at this, because AI and cyber is, you know, there are from a defender's point of view, there are all sorts of things we can do. We can look at a different type of cyber defense. We can use and utilize AI to make our cybersecurity better. We can detect threats and malicious activities in different ways using predictive analysis. It starts to get a little bit sci-fi about the whole thing, and knowing where the attacks are coming before the attacks come, and using and utilize that technology. I think there's a Tom Cruise film that did this, in fiction a few years ago, but it is actually real and realistic. We can learn about the cyber criminals. We can learn about the type of attack. We can learn about the attackers, and that will enhance our defense. We can use those insights and solutions that we maybe never had before. So one I came across last week, which is most bizarre. So drone technology is something that's going on and evolving and developing. Wonderful stuff going on in drone technology. But one of the things the cyber criminals are doing is tracking the drones. And if there's 10 drones in one geographic space, they go, that's interesting. I wonder what's going on there. And they go and look at, with their lens, look at what the drones were looking at and attack it because it's valuable resource. We can also use AI because it's much bigger, faster, better than humans might be, because it does that whole big number crunch piece so much better. But there's a whole other set of malicious uses and new threats because of AI. And it's not just the good guys that are developing AI skills. The bad guys, and remember, the bad guys only have to focus on one expertise. The good guys have to be good at everything. Right? The good guys have to know all the potential attacks. The bad guys can be expert in one thing and be really expert in one thing. They also don't have a day job, so they can really get to detail about that attack. So they've gone really good. And all sorts of things that they can use and utilize. They can identify the targets that's worth attacking. They can use the organization's security against itself. So the organization eats itself because of I didn't mean that. I'm not a bad guy, honest. They can turn that round against the organization. There's the opportunity to weaponize AI and utilize AI as a destructive force rather than a force for good. And this is the really scary stuff, is that the type of attack, the attack vector can morph, can change in motion as it learns more about what it's attacking, right? So where in the past we could defend by building robust defenses, knowing what was coming at us, we don't even know what's coming at us. So it's a real fascinating place to be in, but a really scary place if you are a defender. My wee boy's a footballer and he's a defender, and I often talk to him about the notion of an attacker and an offender. I said, look, as a defender, you've got to get it right all the time. Right? So if you're going to do a tackle, do a tackle. If you're going to kick somebody, kick them hard. If you're going to get booked, make sure you're getting booked for something that's worthwhile. Because did that come out loud? That was in my head. But they've got to get it right. Defense have to get it right all the time. An attacker can have 89 minutes of doing nothing and gets one chance at the goal and scores in the 90th or the 98th minute. It would seem is now an appropriate time. They score once and that's fine. It's exactly the same when we look at cyber attack and cyber defense. The other pieces to throw into the mix, and this comes back to what we're thinking about in higher education, is that AI is potentially very resource intensive. There's a big sustainability piece around that. There's the computing resource that's required. In the cyber world, and we think about digital evidence, how are we going to present digital evidence in court when it's changing all the time, when it's morphing, when AI has been in charge of it? How are we going to charge somebody when the evidence has been created not by a person but by a machine? Right? So who's going to be in court? This robot. You're going to jail. I'm going to unplug it. And it's really quite an interesting challenge for us in the criminal justice system. And of course, AI, and we think it's going to be the answer to everything. There might be some things that it's not quite appropriate for. And as we think about higher education, the problems that we're looking at, the solutions that we're putting in place, it might not always be the case that those solutions are the ones we want to put in place. So here's the starting to be the link between awareness in cybersecurity and awareness about higher education. These are some of the things that I've teased from my research in teaching cybersecurity and putting cybersecurity into the curriculum over the last few years. So getting cybersecurity into the school curriculum, starting really young, really wee people, and getting them to think about cybersecurity. It's a fantastic publication from the Cyber Quarter a couple of weeks ago with the bongos and trying to get the 4 to 7-year-olds to think about passwords and stuff. I try very hard to get mine aren't 4 to 7. They're now know the answer to this. They're 16 to 21, and do they think about cybersecurity? Not so sure. But you know, getting that awareness, that understanding about cybersecurity into curriculum is really, really important. Thinking about what we offer in universities, what we offer in terms of cybersecurity programs, and you know, we've got a fantastic, wonderful program at Abertay, you know, and it's really, really so far ahead of the game, both at undergraduate and indeed postgraduate, that it's, you know, it's just fantastic. But then there's the other piece around embedding cybersecurity principles into everything we do in computer science. So as we learn to program, we think about cybersecurity. As we build databases, we think about cybersecurity. As we build web pages, we think about cybersecurity. As we think about architecture, we think about cybersecurity. Right? So it's there, it's intrinsic, and it's embedded. And it's not just computer science. It's how we take it across all our disciplines. So take business, for example. And really, it's so much more than cybersecurity. It's about business resilience. It's about being able to operate. So cybersecurity should be an integral part and is an integral part of our business curriculum. But we look at other disciplines like law, Annalise, you know, we should be thinking about how this fits into the legal curriculum. We should be thinking about sociology and what that means about for people. Not just, they might not be, you know, cyber brilliant, but they need to be cyber aware. Well, haven't you cyber brilliant before? Something to have that, like that. Cyber brilliant, that's nice. See, we're learning all the time. Thinking about the specialisms around master's programs, so masters in cybersecurity, but also things like cybersecurity management and how we manage that and how we give people the skill to do that. And then there's the whole organizational piece around getting everybody to think about what they do in their day-to-day job in the business as usual, and what the attacks are likely to be, how we enhance that CPD training for everybody, and in every organization, because the threats and the attacks are coming all the time. Yeah, and not some of them are real threats and attacks. Some of them are Fraser trying to catch you out. So be careful. If it's got Fraser on the top, it's Fraser doing it. But you know, these things are important as we learn to defend, because it's one of the great things about the digital world is that we can make things look realistic and real. The bad guys can make emails look realistic and real. They can make URLs look realistic and real. They can encourage you, particularly this time of year. You've had a wonderful year. You've been really good. Here's 25% off all our Apple products. Click on this URL and you have a happy Christmas. If you click on that URL, Christmas might not be quite so happy because you've been cleaned out. You've got no money left. And of course, there's all sorts of things that we can do in university, but there's all sorts of opportunities around specialist training, whether that's from Cyber First and the people at NCSC, who we're very closely aligned with, or ISC Squared, or indeed thinking about getting cyber essentials. So, how do we go about this? And here's some of the problems around higher education in microcosm associated with the cybersecurity environment. How do we make sure that what we're delivering in our courses, what we are creating in our courses, what we are putting out as learning objectives, what we're putting out in the marketing blurb, what we're teaching when they're here, how do we know it's the right thing? How do we know it's the right skills, the right knowledge at the right time? How do we know if we're advertising a 4-year course? we've no idea what the threats are going to be like in 4 years' time, because it's changing. So how do we tell somebody this is what you're going to be studying? So it's a real challenge for us. What do we do? Whose curriculum do we look at? Do we look at the CyBOK, which is a standard cybersecurity curriculum and a body of knowledge? Yeah, really useful. We can draw on that, we can use that, and you can utilize that. How do we know that we are creating graduates that employers want? Particularly when employers don't know what they want, because employers aren't sure about what the cyber threat is. So how do we create graduates who are the right level of skill, the right level of knowledge, the right level of awareness to go out and change the world? At the other end of that spectrum is how do we, and forgive me, it's not just 18-year-olds that come in our courses, there's open to everybody. And be interested in a course, talk to Jackie before you leave and we can, you're very welcome. But if you're looking at 18-year-olds before, as the bread and butter, and I've talked about international students and people coming from all over the world to Dundee. But if you look at the bread and butter, as Scottish domiciled students, mainly from the Dundee area, how do we get them to be switched on to the cyber world? It's a real opportunity. And some folks will get it, some kids will get it, some won't. So that making it attractive to making cyber attractive to prospective students is something that we can then extrapolate out into all our programs. Then we've got them here. How do we make sure that they're getting what they think they're going to get? Right? They've been watching Tom Cruise and his, in his movies. They've been watching spooks. They've been watching all the weird things that are on in fantastic TV programs, and they think that's what it's going to be like. So how do we tailor that expectation? How do we manage that expectation? Well, we do things like get engaged with the cyber quarter and get them to work with partners and the like, partnership coming into play. We need to think about if we've got hundreds of students, which we want, how do we make sure that every student can do an individual project that's going to be interesting, that's going to be challenging, that's going to be supported, that's going to be supervised, which leads into the next problem about how do we get, no disrespect to anybody here, because I know we're all committed to cyber security and cyber awareness and cyber education, but the temptation to go out into the world and earn 3 times the salary, not that you're getting a salary rise, Ferguson, before you think about it, but nice to smile at the same time. Getting academics into the workplace, having a PhD before we come into work, working your way up through grade 7, grade 8, or the earn 300 grand in London being a cyber guru. It's the same in the games industry. It's the same in business. It's not a unique challenge, but it's something that we need to be aware of. How do we get a cyber research agenda? How do we do cyber research? How do we enable colleagues to be at the forefront of that cutting edge of research and protect them at the same time, both as sources of attack, but protect them for knocking down barriers? A really interesting challenge. Then, as I mentioned, how we protect ourselves. As we become known for cybersecurity, then there's the potential for attack. I take a point back to Deloitte. I'm sure Deloitte won't mind me mentioning it because it's out in the public domain. But just before COVID, they got an award of Cybersecurity Firm of the Year. Deloitte's are just rock solid cybersecurity. Their attacks went up 8 times overnight. Yeah. So it's actually better to just we know nothing. We've got nothing. We don't hit me. So, but the things like universities are potential targets. Particularly at September time, as we go through that treadmill of recruiting students, putting students onto the next year of their study. There's a whole set of things around IP. In fact, much of the trusted research agenda is potentially around IP and dual use of data. There's the trusted research piece in itself, but of course there's student data. And how many of our first year students know about what data we hold in them? And that data is really, really valuable, because somebody who wishes to do identity theft can attack a first year who's not really going to do anything. They're not going to apply for mortgages. They're not going to apply for like new credit cards. So they're not going to know about what's happening to their identity until 5 years down the line. Oh, I'd like to buy a house. You've got a mortgage already. You've been paying it for the last 5 years. So student data is a real value. We have this real challenge in universities about being easy, open access, and being all welcoming and all embracing, to actually that dilemma around protecting ourselves in a cyber world. So the way to do this, the way to manage this, the way to address this challenge in education is to partner with industry. So how do we address that turmoil? So in the cyber world, what we can do is try to pull the government agencies. There are many government agencies with many different agenda, and they don't always speak to each other. So getting and understanding that agenda is important. Bringing the private sector into the tent, thinking about potential victims, but also thinking about how universities, colleges, and schools contribute into that piece. So looking at that as a partnership, we're all working together in the cyber world to get the cyber problem right. Great if we can do that, but then extrapolating that out into the wider higher education, as schools become more aware of what we can do, as industry becomes more aware of what we can do, as government becomes more aware of what we can do, then the value of what it is that we are doing becomes more apparent. We can use our partnership to look at problems with different lenses, and that's one of the ways that we can really learn from each other. We can, this is a line for Caroline, where is she? Just to make sure that we've got the right governance structures in place. She would kill me if I didn't say governance at least 32 times. Governance. So governance is really important. But in terms of managing how we track the information that we are using, utilising, how we report that, how we understand the environment is really fundamental. And again, that is something that comes out in the whole higher education piece. We've got that opportunity in partnership to maximise expertise and work together. A couple of examples, obviously the cyber quarter at Abertay, the whole ethos and spirit that has been generated, and Ian and colleagues have put the whole cyber quarter together around partnership, and it's fantastic opportunity. And Ian's diagram, nice orange diagram with all the circles, with everybody from school kids through to prospective students to graduates to industry to government, is just brilliant to show how it all works together. But I'll go back to an example from a time in the Northeast where we first started looking at actually computer forensic programs, when we used to do computer forensics on floppy disks and hard disks, and 20 gigabytes was just as big as it was ever going to get, and in this weird world, which wasn't really that long ago. And I was working with the police, Northumbria Police, at the time, in a building that's now knocked down as a car park, but in Markin Street in Newcastle, building the curriculum so that the police colleagues had input into the curriculum. There were assessments that the police were bringing into play. There was internships that our students could go to and work with the police. So it was fantastic. And talking with the DI and what was in the economic crime unit, said, look, this is great. We're bouncing off each other and learning tons of stuff. And so, yeah, what about other people? Who else can we get around the table? So at that time, there was the Regional Development Agency. However happened to them? Well, I went to work for them. That was the death knell of the regional development agencies. And they got involved. Fantastic. Brought in the different government agencies, both locally and nationally. Brought in the private sector and created a forum where we went round and we talked about the big issues, the debates. We had a whole set of examples, sharing good practice. One of the things that came out of it was a sharing attack platform called CISP. A set of conferences, and it really worked very well. In fact, that model of the Northeast Fraud Forum was extrapolated out into different regions, and what worked. It was fantastic, and it really showed that partnership worked in a really positive way. I'm bound to say that we should include professional bodies because of my commitment to both the BCS and the IET, and indeed CEDA. But the BCS is my bread and butter. So the professional bodies have a big say in this, particularly around accrediting programs, accrediting skills. And indeed, one of the things that I did as an outcome from my research in cybersecurity in the curriculum was to get cybersecurity as an accreditation criteria for the BCS. We say it quickly, that sounds quite an easy thing to do. It was absolute nightmare. But that shaping and implementing policy it's a slow, long, convoluted and complex process. But through all of that, I would advocate that we're stronger together, and all the players in the cybersecurity world working in the same direction, make it a much better environment and do much more for society. So here's the BCS bit. If you're not a member of the BCS, join the BCS. The BCS is great, they're lovely. It's great to see David Murray here, who is in charge of BCS Scotland. We had our AGM and Abertay are right at the forefront of local BCS. But no, they do fantastic work, and they do so much about putting IT into society, making society a better place by using IT. So they're one of the partners that we really should be working with. And although I'm vice president at the moment, Liz is a past president, so we are bought into the BCS. Our colleagues in SDI had a BCS accreditation 2-3 weeks ago and went through without touching the sides. So it's a really, really positive thing. Please tell the BCS that I said that, because they don't pay me. So in summary, cybersecurity is a fascinating but really a really complex place to be. It's a really intriguing set of challenges. It's the goalposts aren't really even goalposts. In fact, the game isn't really a game. It just keeps changing all the time as the evolution and development happens. There's so much to do and so much to understand and so much to tackle that the only way to do that is to work in partnership and to work together to make ourselves stronger. So partnership is the way forward. Getting it right, getting cybersecurity right is going to make the world a better place for everybody. If we take all of that and think about making cybersecurity better and the impact on society, we move that into higher education and getting higher education right, for the folks in this room, getting higher education right for the folks teaching and researching in this building, in this institution, getting higher education right in Scotland, getting higher education right in the UK and indeed globally. It's going to make it a better world, a better life, a better society for everybody. So the lessons we take from cybersecurity and trying to make it a better, safer place, we can extrapolate into higher education, encourage as many people to take advantage of higher education. Nothing annoys me more than punters coming on the radio and saying, "No, you don't need a degree, you don't need to go into higher education, it's just a waste of time, you're wasting your money." So they're good. All right, that was just to make sure that wasn't me. That was the exact opposite of me, right? And you go, I'm crashing the kid. There's driving this in the car, and you just stop it. Get this person off the radio. The clowns. Get folk into higher education. Get kids into higher education. Give them every opportunity. Give them every opportunity, because that's what's going to make society a happier, safer, better place to be. So nearly 45 minutes. I would say Liz must have talked for 5 minutes longer at the start, because it can't possibly be me. I would like to, as I mentioned at the outset, I'm deeply honoured and privileged to have the opportunity to do this, but I can't, stop without thanking my family, thanking my research collaborators, thanking my professional body, BCS, and indeed all my colleagues at Abertay, who have made me so welcome in the time that I have been here working for the last 18 months. So thank you very much for your patience. You don't want to read that as just some boring crap that I've churned out over the last couple of years. So I'm open to any questions. Thank you.